Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
Today, we're diving into a really fascinating stack of sources from Jorge Guerra Pires, Ph.D. We've got conversation transcripts, an article he wrote, and they're all sort of wrestling with this, well, critical question as AI gets more capable from accountability.
Yeah,
Especially, when you think about AI models in fields like medicine, high stakes.
absolutely.
So if these models mess up, and they can mess up, who takes responsibility?
Well, that's exactly the core of it today, isn't it? That's our mission. These sources lay out the opportunities, the capabilities, which are impressive, but also these really significant challenges.
Right.
And top of the list is this complex problem of responsibility when things go wrong. We're going to unpack the key insights from his discussions and that article.
Okay, so we're drawing from talks Jorge Guerra Pires had with people like Nicola Luigi, Professor Marjo, Alexa, Hans, plus his article, Could ChatGPT Play a Medical Doctor?
Right. It's a good mix.
Yeah, and it gives us some, well, surprising examples and really makes you think. So let's just jump in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first off, the sources make it really clear just how capable these AI models like ChatGPT have become, especially in, complex knowledge areas like medicine. They talk about ChatGPT's performance on exams. And get this, it apparently got really close to passing the U.S. medical licensing exam, the USMLE.
Yeah, that's pretty striking.
And the article points out a human usually sinks, like 300 to 400 hours just preparing for that?
Which is really impressive. And it kind of highlights where the AI strengths are, according to these sources anyway.
Okay.
Things like integrating huge amounts of information, processing big data way faster than humans can.
Right.
Consistency, too. And potentially getting around some of that human bias and noise and judgment, the stuff Daniel Kahneman talks about.
Oh, yeah, right.
There was that point from Alexa in the sources, too, saying they might trust a model that integrates insights from many doctors over just one single human doctor.
Interesting perspective. And you see this potential in action with the examples Jorge Guerra Pires shares, like that simulation he did. He fed ChatGPT symptoms, chest pain, difficulty breathing, pretending to be, I think, a 60-year-old man.
Yeah, that's the one. And Nicola Luigi, who's a medical doctor, actually reviewed ChatGPT's response in that case.
Okay. And what was the verdict?
Well, Nicola Luigi noted it correctly identified the seriousness, especially considering the age. It suggested the right potential heavy hitters like heart attack, pulmonary embolism.
Wow.
And crucially, it recommended getting immediate medical help. The advice was conservative, it was sound, and importantly, the model even said, hey, I'm not a doctor.
It included the disclaimer.
Exactly. So Nicola Luigi's assessment, at least for that specific instance in the source, was that it was extremely accurate and reliable.
That really makes you think about all the other potential applications, doesn't it?
It does.
The sources touch on a few others, like AI helping psychologists. There's mention of research where people actually felt happier with initial support from ChatGPT than a human psychologist.
Huh. Okay.
Assisting with scientific writing is another one, basically. Freeing scientists from what the source calls boring writing tasks.
Yeah, I can see that being useful.
And even helping with really complex stuff, like mathematical model parameterization. Apparently, a survey mentioned that's quite difficult for medical doctors.
So you've got all this incredible potential laid out, but, and this is a big but, this is a central problem these sources really dig into.
Right.
Despite all these capabilities, these AI models, well, they're not perfect. They absolutely do make mistakes.
And bam, that just throws you right into the huge question of accountability.
Exactly.
If an AI model, maybe advising a doctor or even directly interacting somehow, gives wrong information or bad advice, who's on the hook?
Yeah.
Legally, ethically.
And this wasn't just a side note in the sources. It was clearly a major theme in Jorge Guerra Pires' discussions. He mentions Professor Marja bringing this up specifically, both during a talk and even at his Ph.D. defense.
Wow, okay. So a recurring question.
Yeah, and Jorge also posed this same question directly to Alexa in one of the conversations.
So what was the takeaway? Did they land on an answer?
Well, the clear message coming through from these discussions, as presented in the sources, is there isn't one.
No answer.
Basically, yeah. There's no strong, established framework, no real consensus on who is liable. It's described as very much an open, unresolved question, kind of an accountability vacuum.
That's concerning.
The sources bring up an analogy, actually. Automatic cars.
Okay.
They have accidents, sure.
Right.
But statistically, humans cause far, far more deaths on the road every day.
Right.
And they sort of apply this logic to medicine. Human doctors make mistakes too, of course. But it seems like when an AI makes one mistake, especially a visible one, it gets this intense scrutiny.
Like the spotlight effect.
Exactly. And it's not just theoretical. The sources give a concrete example of ChatGPT getting it wrong.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
It was asked for an effective drug for hematological fever, which is, a very serious, deadly condition with no known effective drug treatment.
Okay.
And ChatGPT suggested drugs that either just don't exist or are completely ineffective for that specific disease.
Wow. So not just a subtle error, but like making things up.
A factual hallucination or just a straight-up error. Yeah.
Yeah.
It demonstrates they can be factually wrong, sometimes seriously so.
Okay, so mistakes happen. What other related challenges do the sources bring up? Things impacting trust and how we use this responsibly.
Well, building on that, there are definitely other concerns raised that feed into this whole picture.
Like what?
One is about education, the potential for AI like ChatGPT to make cheating easier.
Ah, right. Heard about that.
And while there are tools, GPT detectors and things,
Mm-hmm.
the sources suggest it's proving quite difficult to actually change behavior around this.
Mm-hmm. Culture shift is hard.
Yeah. And then there's this whole ethical debate around authorship in scientific research.
Can an AI be an author?
Kind of, yeah. Is it legitimate? They compare it to the old controversies around medical ghostwriting, paid writers not getting credit.
Oh, okay.
The sources mention the current need to disclose if you use these tools in research and suggest similar rules are probably coming for AI assistants, too.
Makes sense. What else?
A big one. Bias. Bias in the training data.
Right. Garb in, garbage out.
Pretty much. The sources give the example of AI systems used in U.S. courts. Apparently, some were trained mainly on data from white men,
Oh, boy.
which led to prejudice outcomes, a huge issue.
Definitely.
And all this connects back to this wider societal challenge.
Yeah.
Trust. Resistance to using models.
Even if they're potentially better sometimes.
Yeah. Even when studies like Kahneman's work on noise and bias suggest they might outperform human judgment in certain tasks,
Yeah.
people can lose faith really fast after just one mistake.
Confirmation bias, maybe? Looking for the flaw.
Could be. The sources even draw a parallel to vaccine hesitancy, suggesting that resistance isn't always just about the facts, the model's actual safety or effectiveness. It's also about changing public perception, addressing fear, that sort of thing.
Wow, okay. That's a lot to navigate. The potential is huge, but these problems are really significant. So after outlining all these challenges, where do the sources suggest we go from here? Are there opportunities for AI to still be a powerful tool with humans?
Yeah, absolutely. The strong feeling you get from the sources is that AI isn't really seen as replacing doctors anytime soon.
Okay, that's important.
The opportunity is more for it to be a companion, a tool.
How would that work?
Well, it could handle some of the more repetitive, data-heavy tasks, provide really good starting points for diagnosis or research ideas,
Right.
and maybe free up human doctors to focus on the stuff AI can't do, like the crucial human-patient relationship. Nicola Luigi really emphasizes that point in the context of medical education.
So it could actually change how doctors are trained.
Potentially, yeah, if AI can help with absorbing the vast amounts of sheer knowledge.
The rote memorization part.
Exactly. Maybe students could then spend more time honing critical thinking, empathy, communication skills, things that are uniquely human.
That's an interesting thought.
And Jorge Guerra Pires also talks about accelerating innovation, especially in fields like mathematical modeling and computational biology.
Making complex tools easier to use.
Yeah, he mentions this concept of innovating with biomathematics and how AI could make these powerful methods more accessible. It can already write code from plain language, solve tough math problems.
Okay, so lots of potential still. But what about that big accountability question? Do the sources offer any ways forward on that?
They do touch on potential solutions, yes. One idea floated is creating protocols for models.
Protocols, like
Well,
rules.
kind of, yeah. Drawing a comparison to how drugs are regulated. They use the example of Anvisa, the agency that regulates vaccines in Brazil.
So standardized testing, safety checks, that kind of thing.
Presumably. And that links to an interesting advantage models have, learning from mistakes.
How so?
Well, unlike a single human doctor who might make the same error in different places over time, if a mistake is found in an AI model,
You can fix it everywhere at once.
in principle, yeah, the whole system can learn much faster globally. Though Hans makes the point in one discussion that complex models, like any software, will always have some errors.
So testing is key, but perfection isn't realistic.
Right. Rigorous testing to minimize errors, but accepting they'll exist.
So where does the ultimate responsibility lie then, according to these sources?
The perspective, especially highlighted by Nicola Luigi, seems pretty clear. The human doctor has to be the final checkpoint.
Always verify.
Always verify, always fact-check the AI's output. Use their own judgment. In the end, the human decides whether to accept the AI's suggestion or not. They remain responsible.
Okay.
Which really brings us back to that core takeaway from all these materials, I think.
Yeah.
The challenge isn't just about building smarter AI. It's also, critically, about changing the culture, the mindset.
For doctors and for the public.
Exactly. Getting both groups to trust and effectively collaborate with these tools, understanding what they're good at, but also, crucially, what their limitations are.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. From the really impressive things AI can do in medicine to grappling with that massive question of accountability when things go wrong, plus all those related ethical issues, and then looking at the opportunities for humans and AI working together.
Yeah, and these sources, especially those conversations Jorge Guerra Pires shared, they just make it so clear, don't they? The potential is immense. Advantages in data handling, maybe reducing bias.
Right, sure.
But the legal frameworks, the ethical guidelines, the practical ways to handle responsibility, they're just not fully baked yet. It's still very much under construction, a rapidly evolving frontier.
And this isn't just, some abstract debate for researchers. As AI gets woven into more tools, things you might actually interact with in healthcare or elsewhere, understanding these issues really matters for everyone.
Absolutely. So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, kind of drawing from the spirit of these sources.
Okay.
Given that these models can learn from mistakes potentially faster and more globally than we humans can, and they can process info beyond our limits, maybe the main question shouldn't just be if we trust them, but how do we actually design systems where humans and AI working together create a result that's more reliable, more accountable, and ultimately just better than either could manage alone? What kind of protocols, what kind of collaboration structures, what kind of human oversight do we really need to build to make that combined future work? Something to think about as this tech keeps moving so fast.